Alright guys, welcome back. Again, this is Get Dreaming with episode 15. This is my series where I go live on Instagram with dreamers all around the globe. I ask them about their unique dreaming history, any special habits that they do, rituals, techniques, recommendations, books, courses. Yes, Dan, woo! Carissa's just getting logged into her phone now, but like I said, Carissa is who I'm going to be interviewing today. She's the owner of A to ZZZ, which is her independent lucid dreaming research company. She's a lifelong lucid dreamer. She's a practicing Buddhist, and she is all about researching lucid dreams in a super scientific way. Her current research project is on the psychophysiology of clear light dreams, and she's going to talk a lot about that with us today. Also about different signaling methods. Let's see if we can get her in here. Dream big. There she is. All right, it looks like Carissa just logged in. Perfect. Hi guys. Hey Sunita. So let me know when you're in here. Give us a hashtag live if you're live, and a hashtag replay if you're watching on replay, and a hashtag GDW fan if you've been watching along for this whole series. This can be active, so if you have questions as we're going, feel free to type them into the chat for us. And we'd love to know more about you guys, what kind of level of lucid dreamer you are, why you're interested in this stuff. This episode, again, is going to be more specifically on Carissa and her research, scientific research. She's in here saying she's unable to join. Thanks for bearing with us, guys. The joys of technology. Oh, awesome. I'm an avid lucid dreamer. I also practice Tibetan Buddhism. Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are connected with it through that field, which is super cool. Carissa, are you able to join? Yeah.
Hey everyone.
Hi. Hi, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thanks. Good, thanks. Cool. So I gave you a mini intro, Carissa, but is there anything I'm leaving out of that? Anything you want to add in?
Oh, well, I just want to start by thanking everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Lana, so much for inviting me onto your show. I followed your show very closely, so I'm very honored to be a part of this. And
thank you.
Yeah, I just want to start by saying that, I believe lucid dreaming, especially the community, is just a well-faceted group of interesting people, and certainly lucid dreaming spans across different interests. And I'm looking forward to talking with you today about my research and a little bit more about what I do through A to Z.
Definitely, definitely. Well, for those people who are new to you and your work, do you want to say a bit more about your background? Like, this is quite a weird thing for a lot of people. So what got you into dream work in the first place? Like, where did this all begin for you?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And it's one of my favorite questions to be asked. So dreams and I have had a really interesting relationship all throughout my childhood. I can remember having very vivid dreams. And around the time of middle school, I started to have these flying dreams where I realized that I was dreaming. There used to be this hill in the backyard of the elementary school, and we used to run down that hill as fast as we could. So in my dreams, I would be in that same hill and realize I was dreaming, and then I would take off and start flying. And it wasn't until I was much older that I realized that that's not common, that, lucid dreamers, especially at a young age, that's not a very common thing. So I started to read up on that, and in my teens, for example, I did get very heavily involved in meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things kind of came together, and in 2009, I found Buddhism and started to become a practicing Buddhist. Shortly after that, in 2011, was really when my world with lucid dreaming opened up. I found Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming by Stephen LaBerge. That completely changed my life's trajectory, and I knew that I wanted to be involved in the field. So I started coaching in 2011, mostly one-on-one coaching sessions, workshops in Connecticut. And then in 2018, I founded A-Z LLC because I realized, out of my love for the community and out of the desire to help advance lucid dreaming research, that in order to advocate for the community, the best way I could do that would be helping individuals develop their foundational skill sets, learning the basic concepts, learning the basic foundational practices of sleep architecture. So I started A-Z to help with that, to really facilitate those coaching sessions, and then also to get more involved in research. So since 2018, I've been participating with A-Z LLC as a technical writing company, and I'm currently working on a research project that I hope we can spend some time talking about today also.
Definitely will. Yeah, thank you so much for all your contributions to this field. I think, as much as it's amazing to see so many more people getting involved and more popular platforms like Vice and stuff like that sharing articles we still got a long way to go, right? So we can always use more people who are interested and looking to expand and do research in this way.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I was curious. So you were saying that you got into this more naturally. It just came to you as a child, but obviously you coach in this as well. So do you have any tips or advice for people who are looking to get started? Maybe they're not natural lucid dreamers, but they want to kind of dive in and have their first experiences.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I think that's an important question. I think initially it's important to mention that every person has the innate ability to cultivate lucid dreams, but I would stress and preface my recommendation by saying that it does take diligence and time. So I equate that to someone that's training for a marathon, for example. If we don't put in the time, if we don't do the basic foundational work in the beginning and do that consistently, there's really no way for us to improve. So what I mean by that is we should ultimately start by looking at where we are now and where we want to be in terms of what we would deem successful as being a lucid dreaming practitioner. So I think one of the best things we can do is start by keeping a dream journal or some method to boost our dream recall. And the reason I say that is because without a way to measure our progress over time, it's very difficult to make changes or adaptations. So we need to have an idea of where we currently are. We need to evaluate a collection of dream journal events over a period of time. We want to look for things like, what are our dream signs? What are some things that were unusual that went unnoticed, that going forward we can train ourselves during the day to do those practices and look for? Where are those dreams normally taking place? So for example, I commonly have dreams of my parents' backyard. So whenever I go visit them, I do my reality checks there. I absolutely do not miss that opportunity. So that also folds into the next part, which are the diurnal practices. It's one thing to keep a very accurate dream journal, being very meticulous, which is very, very good. But we have to do those practices during the day. We have to do the reality checks. We have to, check the time 2 or 3 times, look at a line of text 2 or 3 times. We really need to drill that into our minds so that it becomes habitual, because ultimately that conditioning will carry over into the dream, and then we'll do that there, and we'll have a very different result, of course, depending on where we're actually doing that check.
Definitely.
So yes, I would say initially go into it with the mindset that it will take time and discipline, and don't be discouraged if that doesn't happen right away. I would also say that keeping a dream journal and doing the practices during the day is very important. Also, having a sense of community helps. You know, as you know, we're both members of the Lucid Hive, and so there's a sense of community there, and I think that's very important. I also have a Wake Back to Bed support group that I'm hosting, because I think it encourages us, if we do this together, to hold each other accountable, hold ourselves accountable to do the work. You know, if you really want to see results in lucid dreaming, you've got to put the time in. There's really no magic, you know, switch that you can flip and then automatically just start having lucid dreams. And certainly, you know, if there's this idea that you can have lucid dreams in under 5 minutes or something like that, I think that's just setting ourselves up for failure and disappointment, because we're setting ourselves up with unrealistic expectations.
Mm.
So put the time in, be diligent, be consistent, and give yourself the time you need to be successful.
I love that. I love that you're talking about the long-term game and the long-term gains as well, because I think you're right. I think using it in terms of a marathon is a great example, right? Like you can absolutely take part in a marathon if you haven't trained, but it's going to be really hard and a much more painful experience. But kind of seeing the long-term goals and what you can achieve in doing that training, and I think the more work you put into it, or the more conscious effort that you bring, the more powerful of lucid dreaming experiences we have, right? Love
Yeah,
that.
thank you for
Yeah.
saying that. And I think you also bring up a valid point as well about bringing awareness in. So one thing I really love the most about lucid dreaming is as we're bringing awareness into our nightly practice, we're also seeing a reciprocal effect that we have more awareness during the day. So, you know, it's very much a reciprocal, mutually beneficial practice. These diurnal practices feed into the nocturnal practices and so forth. So if you really take it to heart and do the practices correctly, even your daytime practices, if you meditate, for example, you're going to see some profound differences.
Absolutely. I really like that you mentioned, you know, having that community spirit as well to boost you. And you talked a little bit about Wake Back to Bed and how you've started a group for that. So for the people who are not sure with what the Wake Back to Bed practice involves, or they're looking for a group or a community to join, can you share with us a bit more about what you're doing with that, what it is, how people can get involved?
Sure, yeah, thank you for asking. So the Wake Back to Bed technique, there was a recent study that was published in Dream Magazine, which is published by the IASD, and they featured utilizing the Wake Back to Bed technique in a home setting, which I recently analyzed and published my review of that on the Hive. So ultimately, what the Wake Back to Bed technique is that you need to wake up approximately after your third REM cycle, which is about 5 to 6 hours after the initial time that you go to bed. So if you're listening and saying, well, I don't know how long a REM cycle is, or, you know, when should I actually time myself to wake up? Set your alarm for about 5 to 6 hours after you've gone to bed. And when you wake up, the best thing to do, of course, is to limit your time on electronics, or if you are on electronics, as we're doing it in the social media group, for example, you can buy these glasses that block blue light, or you can keep your phone on its lowest setting. So you want to try to keep that down to maybe 30 minutes, but ultimately the goal of that exercise is to reflect on the previous dream that you've just awoken from, think about the dream signs that you've missed, and analyze them so that if you have a repeat of that dream or those dream signs, that you'll be able to recognize them. Then you also want to tie that into a technique where you are saying to yourself, the next time I'm dreaming, I'm going to remember that I'm dreaming. You know, Stephen LaBerge coined that phrase from his book, Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we've reflected on the previous night's dream, that we are setting the stage for success by having that phrase and repeating that phrase as we're falling asleep. But also we want to do some goal setting. You know, I've always really enjoyed talking about this like someone that's going on a vacation.
Mm.
You have to make all the preparations to go on this trip, but then when you get there, you're not really sure what to do. That's a missed opportunity. I think you should go into that prepared to test something out, or maybe if you can't think of anything else, just go fly and try experimenting with that. Because ultimately, the wake back to bed is very successful. From the study that was recently published, even if you've never had a lucid dream before, of the individuals that were studied over a 5-week period, they did have a lucid dream, but on a non-wake to bed, wake back to bed night.
Okay.
So you can increase your chances if you're previously already lucid dreaming by up to 12% if you do this technique. But if you've never had a lucid dream before, chances are pretty good that you'll have one, but probably not on a wake back to bed night.
Mm.
And I just want to add one last thing in regards to that. It's very good to pick a night where you don't have to get up early the next day. So weekends are best. They found that there was a sense of sleep deprivation or fatigue the next day, but that was less likely if the participants could sleep in the next day.
Okay.
So that's key. It's really waking up about 6 hours after you go to sleep, limiting time on electronics, but thinking about the previous night's dream, setting some intention for the next dream, and then reminding yourself over and over that you will remember the next time you're dreaming.
I love it. Yeah, I think wake back to bed is a super powerful practice for me. I would say like probably 95 plus percentage of the time that I've used it, I've had a lucid dream. I definitely agree with what you're saying about not having those stressors of needing to like wake up and go to work and messing up your sleep cycle. I know one question that comes up a lot in terms of wake back to bed is, how long should you stay up for? Like some people only want to stay up for 10 or 15 minutes. Other people say you need to like really get up and do something and be up for 45 minutes to an hour. Do you know any stats on that, or like a good boundary for an ideal time?
That's a really good question. I don't have any specific time frames. I know that when we're doing the Wake Back to Bed support group, we're trying to limit that to about 20 minutes just because we're using cell phones, for example. So we want to mitigate the amount of time we're spending and exposing ourselves to blue light. Stephen LaBerge, in his book, Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming, does cover that. And I can't recall in the study how long the period was for the Wake Back to Bed. But that's certainly something I can follow up with you on after. If individuals have questions, we can follow up with them.
Oh, that sounds good. And obviously, a lot of people in here are super interested in you and your research. I know you put a specific emphasis on like keeping it really scientific, which I love as well. I think it's great to have those like hard facts and the statistics that you're using about wake back to bed, helping around 12%. It's like, wow, that's actually a lot. So tell us more about what you're researching at the moment, and yeah, I'll leave it to you to dive in.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to start by saying that, I think I hinted on this earlier, a big drive for me to start A to Z LLC was the understanding that even though the lucid dreaming scientific community is about 50 years old now, in terms of publications, it's still very much in its infancy. We really don't have a lot of publications yet on lucid dreaming. And so I felt a very strong drive to proactively fix that problem. And so currently what I'm working on is a study on the psychophysiology of clear light dreams and non-REM states, non-REM lucid states.
Okay.
And I'm working on that with Dr. Benjamin Bard, who works at the University of Wisconsin. And I've had the pleasure of working with him and connecting with him over the period of a few months. And he's an exceptional researcher. I really do feel if he ever felt compelled to become a coach or lead coaching sessions or conferences, that the lucid dreaming community would benefit greatly. So
we'll keep nudging him. Anyone tuning in, send him an email. Awesome. Tell us a bit more about clear light dreams. Like explain to people what does that mean?
So clear light dreams, we have some historical references about clear light dreams from texts like the Upanishads or other Eastern traditions that document it really well. Mm-hmm. And as it's described in the Buddhist tradition, its clear light mind is described as your true nature, or also the clear light of Dharmakaya. So this is actually a state that we experience every night as we fall asleep. And it's akin to a very bright flash of light as we're falling asleep. But it's got this incredible luminosity to it that's beyond anything we've ever experienced. So clear light dreams especially are phenomenal in the way that if anyone tuning in has ever had one, it's unlike anything you'd ever experienced before. It makes the sun look like a dimmer switch. You know, it's really incredible. So primarily what our research strives to do is to investigate the ways that a lucid dreamer could communicate in a state like that, because it's underrepresented as far as studies go. We really just have anecdotal evidence at this point. We don't have any scientific documentation.
I see. So how would it work? Would you use like eye signals or brain scans, or what are your thoughts about how we would kind of communicate between that clear light state and the waking state?
That's a great question, and that's something that we're actively working to discover. So, for example, we know through studies like Stephen LaBerge, who captured it so well with his left, right eye movements. You know, it's I think the template that all lucid dreaming studies have used since then. That's certainly one of the signals that we'll be testing, and we're also looking at respiration, because we're just not sure. I think one of the characteristic traits of clear light dreams, or what's called lucid dreamless sleep, is that it's void of a dream body. It's void of a sense of location. It's ultimately void of a sense of, you know, a person with a body. And so ultimately, it's really interesting to think about how a person might signal from a state like that if they don't have an idea of being in a sense of self at that point.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, what we're primarily looking at as a signaling method is both respiration and eye signals.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, maybe it would have to use like different things, like you're saying respiration, or I wonder if body temperature would change or stuff like that. It's really, really interesting. Tell us more about your own practice. Like, could you share with us a clear light dream experience, or even any other profound lucid dreaming experience that you've had?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Those are always things that I would love to share. And so I'll share one of my more, well, I think what might be more useful is to share with individuals how they might cultivate this on their own.
Okay.
And let them see what the experience might be for themselves. And I do want to preface this really quickly by saying that any individuals that have had clear light dreams like this, or after this brief discussion have a clear light dream, the University of Glasgow is conducting an online survey on these types of dreams. And so if anyone can contribute to that, especially, you know, as individuals that feel compelled and are equipped to contribute scientifically in the forms of research publications, that's fantastic. But also as lucid dreamers, you know, we should, if we can, participate in any studies that advance the research. So I just want to put that out there, that anyone with interest can certainly reach out to the University of Glasgow for that, to participate. And so what I would say is that I've noticed from my own personal experience that lucid dreaming is very much a biofeedback loop. You know, what we experience is very much based on expectation. You know, we expect to be chased down the hill by, you know, a stampede of animals. That's probably what we'll dream about. Or, you know, if we want to have a dream about a peaceful setting, then we will. So what happens if we don't put anything into that dream content at all? You know, what would we expect to see if we just passively observe? And so what I would say to that is it's important for us to, once we realize that we're lucid, just look around. Just take a moment, notice your breathing, and also just watch the scene dissolve. And it's really quite as simple as that. Is just allow it to dissolve. Don't expect anything to come forth from in terms of dream content. and just see what the result is. And for those of you that have had it, you'll know that there's just this incredible luminosity that takes place. Initially, for me, there's still an idea of having a dream body as the dream scene around you is dissolving, but then ultimately, even this idea of a dream body goes away. And then the experience after that is really indescribable. And I certainly don't want to taint anyone's expectations of what that looks like, but
Yeah, yeah. I often like those kind of lucid dreams where, yeah, like you said, you're just observing. I think a lot of people go into this practice with the idea of being like, I want to control everything and change everything. And actually, some of the most profound lucid dreaming experiences, at least for me, have been, like you said, when you're actually letting go of that idea of control and just being super conscious in whatever the observing whatever the dream space is showing you.
right, exactly. And so part of what makes working with clear light dreams so exciting for me personally is that I've always looked at lucid dreaming as this rich platform to explore our minds. And so, I look at lucid dreaming as the initial phase of, becoming lucid, extending dream control, and extending duration, right? Those are really three key things. And once we do that, it's normal to do the wish fulfillment phase of the flying and doing all the fun things, which is normal. But then we should really try to investigate the neuroplasticity of our mind and our discipline and how much we're really reifying the dream state. So what I mean by that is experiment with the idea of multiplying objects, changing the color of things, changing the sizes. Andrew Holacek has this great benchmark. He says if you can walk through a wall in a lucid dream, then you're on the right track. So then from there, ultimately, lucid dreaming folds into dream yoga, which folds into sleep yoga. And so really Andrew Holacek is the best person to continue that conversation. But ultimately, lucid dreaming, I believe, should be a platform for introspection and expanding and really getting a magnifying glass into how your mind works, how the nature of perception is creating your reality. So take that as far as you're willing to go. You'll be surprised.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Andrew Holacek and Dream Yoga as well. Luckily for me, he's here about 20 minutes away from where I live in Colorado. So I have the pleasure of seeing him at the kind of Buddhist Dhamma temple space that's here sometimes. And his talks and his books are incredible. He explains things so well. It reminds me as well of a task that Robert Wagner explored where when you're in that state in the lucid dream, you just walk in a shape. So like walking in a circle and just observing what happens, or walking in a square or a triangle, or even flying in a shape. I don't know if you've heard of that study or explored it yourself as well.
That's really interesting. I have not heard of that before, but I'm going to try that. So,
Ooh, yeah, it's been it was just a really interesting add-on to that kind of observational state for me. It's interesting the different shapes and the ways to do it, and just seeing how things change as you move in that kind of pattern. I was just looking at some of the other questions that were sent in. Okay, so people are asking about the pandemic and like, has the pandemic changed your dream practice at all? What are ways that we can, utilize the pandemic to maybe get deeper with this kind of practice?
yeah, that's a great question. Thank you to whoever asked that. That's a really good question. And so part of, the pandemic includes being in quarantine, which means, being at home a lot of the time. So initially for me, dreaming of being places outside around like crowded people or people without masks, initially I was taken aback and said, oh my goodness, I'm in a crowd of people and no one's wearing masks. But now I use that as a dream sign. Now I can take a step back and say, well, wait a minute. Why am I outside my house? I'm not at work at the moment, or I'm not, going to the grocery store to get essential things. I might be in an unusual place like an amusement park or the beach, for example. I dream of the beach frequently. So for me, now that's become a dream sign. And I think another great benefit of being home often is, treat your home as your space, as your nest. And Cordell Jacks, he has this really great picture of putting Post-its that say, "Are you dreaming?" Cordell Jacks is a great lucid dreaming coach on Vancouver Island in Canada. And I thought that was a really great idea. You know, I don't, if you live with someone and you say, "Well, honey, why did you put like, are you dreaming on the milk bottle?" It doesn't really make any sense. It's kind of, you know, or on like the toothpaste bottle, but have fun with it, you know, it's your own personal space. So use that as an opportunity to stimulate that question as often as you can. You know, how am I dreaming? Am I dreaming? How do I know? So plant those little seeds in your environment as to your heart's content, really. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially if you're new to starting the practice, it can be really useful to use, like you said, like stickies or even little stickers, colored stickers on things that are your dream signs or that kind of thing. Like if you regularly dream you're on the beach or with water, then yeah, like putting it on some of the taps or the faucets in your house, or like reminding yourself every time you take a drink of water or interact with water is super useful, especially in those beginning stages, to remind yourself to reality check, right?
Right, exactly. And I think a great way to think about that, you know, if a person is asking themselves, why would I do that? What's the benefit to that? I don't get it. I think you have to look at that like if you're taking a test, you ask yourself the same question over and over and over, and you learn what the expected answer would be, right? So that when you go actually take the test, you're prepared to be successful. So the idea is asking ourselves so many times during the day that it becomes habitual, so that we carry in that way of thinking into the dream.
Mm.
So, you know, just remember, the more effort you put in during the day, the better the results at night. And also you can have fun with it. So
Yeah, I like that. I like, I think it's important to build it into your day-to-day life, right? Because if you're just doing something super random at different times, or you're setting like alarms on your phone, like how many of us do have dreams where like we're using our phone or an alarm's going off? Not many, right? So then you're kind of leaving it just to chance more than really integrating it with your waking life practice. We got a question coming in saying, how can we deal with when we have been practicing so long our body is tired? So I guess asking about, exhaustion, or yeah, maybe a little bit in connection to what you were talking about earlier with like the way back to bed practice, or it being a more of a tiring experience.
yeah, so I think with as much information as we can derive from that question, I'll take that to mean that if a person is practicing wake back to bed often, and they're feeling fatigued, how can they mitigate that? And I'll reiterate that by saying that, you know, choose a time where you can sleep in the next day. Um, if you can get that extra time. So, for example, if I'm going to bed at 9, waking up around 3 or so, staying up till about 3:30 and then going back to bed. I don't know if anyone's seen me on Facebook. I respond to a lot of messages at 3:30 in the morning. um, but I also use that opportunity after. I do that because I know I can sleep in till maybe 7 o'clock the next
Mm.
morning.
Mm.
But weekends are better for some individuals too. So um, try to do that once a week and pick a day that you can sleep in a little bit more.
Agreed. Yeah. I think it's also really important to have that set sleep schedule, right? Like really
Mhm.
getting that 8 hours of sleep. Even if you're a late sleeper, you're going to bed at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., then make sure you're still sleeping that 8 hours. And our body gets really used to like going to sleep at the same time, waking up at the same time, and being able to get that kind of deep rest.
Right, and I would add to that as well when we talked a little bit about the question of how to get started and the benefits of a dream journal. I also include the times that I go to bed and the times I wake up, and it is very much about consistency. But getting an idea of your general like go to bed and wake up time is really good for things like timing wake back to bed. Then you can
Yeah.
actually say, okay, I know consistently I go to bed at maybe, you know, 9, 10, 10:30, whatever that time is for you. So then you know, okay, I just have to maybe set my alarm every Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then I don't have to think about it. Then it's
Yeah.
just this habitual thing, and it's easier for you to do.
Definitely. I know there are quite a few studies on how, lucid dreaming is actually, uh, um, people don't think so, but it's actually still in that deep level of sleep, and you do get rest when you're lucid dreaming. And a lot of people who lucid dream actually wake up, you should feel somewhat more refreshed than a regular kind of sleep, especially if you're doing something or working on a task or having like a clear light dream. You should wake up feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. So most of the studies that we have information on are lucid dreams and REM sleep, which are different from like N2 and N3, what we would consider deep sleep. Though we do have some record of lucid dream in N1.
Yeah.
So it is a little different than saying that we have lucid dreams in deep sleep. But I would support what you said from personal experience that I have had on rare occasions some of the worst sleep of my life. And it'll be 5 in the morning. I haven't slept at all. And I say, I know that if I can just have one lucid dream, that I'll be able to, make it through the day. And I'm really not sure why this works. I really need to investigate this more closely. But I've had lucid dreams on nights like that, and I felt incredible the entire day. And just to add one more thought quickly, we know from prior studies that individuals that have had lucid dreams, I think a common concern and question is, well, if I'm having a lucid dream, am I some way detracting from my ability to sleep restfully? And it's not the act of lucid dreaming that detracts. It might be something like, the wake back to bed and the sleep deprivation that might, or the sleep fatigue that might occur there. But the act of lucid dreaming itself doesn't take away from the quality of sleep.
Agreed. Yeah. I think another good one is like those lucid naps. So if you're someone who's not getting those, solid 8 hours in the night, even if you can get like a 20-minute or ideally like a 90-minute nap cycle, but it's a great time in the middle of the day to get lucid, and even just setting the intention to rest, rejuvenate, heal in the body could be super powerful.
Yeah,
Troy saying that's me
those
every day.
micro naps. Yeah, those micro naps can be really helpful, especially for people that have like chronic sleep deprivation that just really aren't sleeping well. If you feel inclined to take a nap in the afternoon, absolutely do that. Especially for individuals that are chronically sleep deprived, they may fall asleep, right away and wake up saying they feel very refreshed. Part of that is because they're chronically sleep deprived too. But as lucid dreamers, if we have maybe a free afternoon and we want to try taking a nap, that can be helpful too. We can try that.
Definitely. Well, thanks so much, Carissa. We've got so much gold in this conversation. I know we're coming to the end of this talk, but people who are interested in you participating in these studies that you shared, or joining in the Wake Back to Bed group that you run, like how can they connect to you? How can they find you or work with you?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So for those of you that have watched today that are interested in connecting with me more and asking questions, you can email me directly at carissa@dreambigdreamlucid.com. You can also visit my website at dreambigdreamlucid.com. Our next event is a Wake Back to Bed support group, which is Wednesday, March 3rd at 3 in the morning Pacific time. I'm really trying to give each time zone some time set aside for that. So the next one is going to be 3 a.m. Pacific time. So you can go ahead and check us out on Facebook and Instagram. And also on the 25th of every month, I do post content to the Lucid Hive. So if you're not already following there, you can certainly sign up, and that way you'll be notified when other contributors and content creators post.
Thank you so much. I always ask, can't guarantee it, but is there another person in this dreaming community that you would love to see on this series, or someone whose brain you would like to pick a bit more on these kind of topics?
Oh, yeah. Gosh, if I can only pick one, that's a tough question. I would say initially, as I mentioned, I think Dr. Benjamin Bard is an excellent researcher. So if there's any possible way of getting him on, that would be fantastic. I would also, my additional recommendation would be Cordell Jacks, the dream coach from Vancouver Island.
Yeah,
He's really a spectacular coach, and I think that would be a good fit for one of your next interviews.
that sounds cool. Yeah, I know he's doing a lot of interesting studies and presentations and workshops and stuff at the moment as well. But thank you so much, Carissa. This was so great. Is there anything you'd like to share that we haven't covered, or just as a parting words?
Yeah, thank you. I would just like to say again, thank you so much for inviting me onto the show. And I would like to thank all of the lucid dreamers that connected with us today. I can't thank you all enough. Without lucid dreaming, the lucid dreaming community, there could be no lucid dreaming coaches, there could be no hive, there could be no research. So I just want to thank you all. I have such a deep love and appreciation for all of you, and want to thank you all so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Well said. Thanks so much, Carissa. Looking forward to keeping up to date with your research and findings. Sounds super exciting.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Take care, everyone.
Hello. Great to see you guys.